Hello, and welcome to another Let's Play. Today, we will be looking at Scar. Scar's objective is to have a total of 15 strength in his succession pile. His succession pile is started after defeating Mufasa, a 6 strength hero, so you essentially need to find 9 strength throughout any of these other heroes. Any combination will do, and then start your turn. Unfortunately, Scar is one of the worst characters in the game. This is because his objective can be set back very easily, and it is brutal when it does, and he can also get overwhelmed extremely quickly. So let's focus on how not to get overwhelmed. The best way to deal with heroes is with your allies. So let's go over them first, shall we? First, let's go over these named hyenas. You have Bonsai the hyena. Bonsai gives you 1 power whenever another hyena is discarded from his location. This ability is okay, but the big problem with that ability is that there are plenty of other ways for you to gain power, which we will go over in just a moment. One of those ways is Ed. Ed doesn't directly gain you power, but he makes every hyena played to his location cost 1 less. And then you have Shinzi the hyena. Shinzi allows you to play another hyena from your hand for free when she is played. This can be incredibly good. 1, to empty your hand, and 2, just to get your hyenas out there. Speaking of, the rest of your hyenas are your hungry hyenas. Hungry hyenas are 2 cost and 1 strength, but they get 1 strength for every other hyena at their location. Notably, this includes Bonsai, Ed, and Shenzi, as well as the rest of the hungry hyenas. Ideally, you want to be able to use 2 hyenas in your vanquish against Mufasa, and 1 hyena for every other vanquish. Of course, this is an ideal world, and it doesn't always pan out that way, but that is the dream. To achieve this dream, it is best to stack your hyenas in 1 location. I personally like the elephant graveyard. That is because it is not one of the edge locations, which will be important in just a moment. And you don't really care about losing your top play card because you have another 2 play card action location. And now let's talk about the Stampede. Stampedes are your best ally. They are 3 strength, which are incredibly handy for dealing with all of these 3 and 2 strength heroes. However, their ability is what sets them apart. When they are played, they move a hero from their location to an adjacent one, and you can immediately take a vanquish action. What this means is you can play a Stampede at a different location and move that hero onto your hyena stack. And ideally only use 1 hyena because they can get very strong. And then you just have a 3 strength ally hanging around ready for something else. So Shinzi Stampedes are the best allies to use in the Vanquish actions, because if you ever play them again, you get their abilities again. Then you're going to want to use those hyenas. Ideally, you will use 2 hyenas for Mufasa, so you will need a stack of 3 hyenas. Of course, it could be Bonsai and 2 hyenas, or Ed and 2 hyenas, or just 3 hungry hyenas, and you will only need 2 of them to defeat Mufasa. Alternatively, if you have 4 hyenas at a location, you can use a hungry hyena and 1 of the named hyenas, preferably Shenzi, and that'll also get you up to that 6 strength threshold. Unfortunately, those are really all of the allies you've got. You don't have a whole lot of options to cover your entire realm because the hyenas get weaker if they are spread out. And you need some pretty strong hyenas because one strength will not really cut it against your three strengthers. So, feel free to vanquish the heroes whenever they pop up. You do have a good amount if you only use one for every vanquish. You just might not have enough that you would like if you use two or three for every vanquish. And once those allies are vanquished, you can fish them back out with Be Prepared. Be Prepared discards the top three cards of your deck, and you can either take one effect or two allies back from the discard. Ideally, you get those Stampedes or Shenzi back, but getting back any hyenas or any of the named hyenas that may have been discarded is also extremely good. Getting back the effect isn't really what you want to do, but can be good in a pinch. You should not be using this card, however, to attempt to find your allies. Instead of finding your allies, you may discard really good cards that you cannot fish back, like your Injustices, or maybe three effects. So it's always good to have a plan in mind before you start discarding the top three cards of your deck. And if you discard a Stampede, maybe your plan changes. So ideally, you have cleared your realm and you have a big hyena stack ready for a vanquish. Now you're going to want to play Long Live the King to try to find Mufasa. Long Live the King costs one power and reveals the top four cards of the Fate deck. And you can play one hero, specifically a hero, so no effects or items. And you get to discard the rest, but that doesn't really come into play most times. So ideally, you can play Mufasa to whichever location has your hyena stack and vanquish him right then. You do not want him to hang around on the board too long because he can get buffed up with cards from the Fate deck. You also have Whisper if Mufasa gets discarded early. Whisper also costs one, but allows you to take any card from the Fate discard pile and play it. Notably, this does not include the heroes. This does not just include the heroes, I'm sorry. So you can play the stick or the prophecies, though you will not be doing that. What you will be doing instead is playing Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata either plays a hero with a strength of 3 or less from your succession pile, which is not what you do, or moves a hero. This is incredibly good to get heroes into position for vanquishes. It is also extremely good for pulling out a specific hero that you would like to vanquish. So Whisper is an all-around utility card. Just be careful that you only have 3. With Long Live the Kings, you can really discard them until you're ready for the Vanquish, but the Whispers, you may want to keep around just to keep your board a little bit more under control, and you can just Whisper right into that hyena pile. Another effect you have is Stick With Me, 0 cost, and you can use an available action, non-fate, at a location with a hyena. There are 2 main uses for this. Either gaining 3 power, which is pretty good, or it gives you another opportunity to vanquish if you are not at that location. Unfortunately, this does require a hyena at that location, which if you stack at the elephant graveyard isn't the easiest, but it is perfectly manageable to do, and Scar has the hyenas, it's just those vanquish actions that he's really lacking. You also have, for our last effect, Feeding Frenzy. 2 cost, choose any amount of hyenas, and move them to any location. This card is unfortunately not very good. For one, it costs 2, which is pretty expensive. It costs as much as Hyena. And also, you can just do the same thing for cheaper with Whisper. Instead of moving your hyenas, you can just move a hero. So feel free to discard those as soon as you draw them. And lastly, onto our conditions. First, we have Pride. If another player discards 2 cards or more, you can get 3 power. Pretty handy, but not worth holding on to. And then there's Injustice. One of the ways you'll probably win the game in the end game, but playing in the early game helps too, since you can force a fate that will do nothing. Injustice allows you to look at the top 2 cards of the fate deck when you are being targeted with a fate action, and you can discard one, both, or none. Early game, you want to try and force the Hakuna Matatas, the Rafiki Stick, and the Prophecies when there are no heroes on the board, so that the fate doesn't do anything and you don't get overrun with heroes. It is a perfect time to discard Simba, and honestly, even Mufasa, just so he can't get buffed with further fates. Late game, it is really good to avoid Hakuna Matata and allow them to play heroes. So overall, an extremely good and versatile card whenever you draw it. The worst feeling is when this one specific card gets discarded with Be Prepared. And with that, we are done with our villain cards. Let's move over to our fate cards. We have 3 copies of the dreaded Hakuna Matata. The Hakuna Matata, as discussed before, allows the opponent to play a hero with a strength of 3 or less from the succession pile back into your realm, and you will have to deal with it again. The moving a hero is not one you have to worry about your opponents playing too much. They're usually just going to try to undo that progress you made. This can be incredibly annoying because they get their uh, passive abilities back, and they're also when played abilities back as well. This can really snowball into something pretty annoying to deal with. Then we have Mufasa. Mufasa you is the card you were searching for, and you're going to have to deal with him at some point. The worst feeling is when Mufasa gets Rafiki Stick. Rafiki Stick allows a hero to survive a vanquish action, and instead the stick gets discarded. This can be really awful on strong heroes and even some weaker heroes if they're in bad locations, which we will talk about in just a moment. Overall, just a card you definitely want to avoid on heroes that you aren't planning on killing. If you do vanquish heroes with this that hold the stick, it better be worth wasting those allies. Speaking of worth wasting those allies, you have Simba. Simba makes it so that the max strength of hyenas is 2. This completely nullifies the hyena stack and forces you to go about the vanquishes the old-fashioned way with multiple piles of hyenas at different locations. Simba is priority number 1 if he hits the board. Honestly, even before Mufasa. Simba, thankfully, can be taken out with just a Stampede with 3 strength, and then a 2 strength hyena, which you should have either the named hyenas or the hyena stack with 2 strength. Rafiki is another dreaded hero. He is essentially another taunt hero, but this is a taunt hero that can be replayed multiple times with Hakuna Matata. This is a card you definitely want in the discard pile before you start your succession pile. And then we have our other Hakuna targets. In order of most annoying to least annoying, we have Nala, who moves a hero whenever she is played. This is devastating if you have all your heroes under control. If you have a big stack of heroes and she is played, you have just lost 2 locations because she will move one of those heroes. It is incredibly frustrating. You also have Sarabi. When Sarabi is played, she discards a hyena from her location, which is pretty bad to have repeating, especially with Hakuna Matata. It's not as bad as Nala, but still something you want to try and avoid. But because her ability is a May, you can play her with Long Live the King, no problem. You also have Pumbaa and Timon, with 3 and 2 strength respectively, and they both get +2 strength if the other is in the realm, so it is very handy to vanquish them as soon as they show up so they do not get that boost. It is also good because they do not get a bonus if they are replayed through Hakuna Matata. And then you also have Zazu. Zazu is a very interesting hero. All heroes at Zazu's location get all other heroes get -2 strength. This means you can vanquish Timon for free. The 3 strengthers only need 1 strength, and Simba only needs a stampede, and Mufasa would only need 4 strength. Very handy to have at a hyena stacking location. However, if he's not at that location, all other heroes get +1 strength, which can make it so a stampede cannot vanquish the 3 strength heroes, which can be very annoying. So Zazu is incredibly good to keep under control, but not so great if he gets away from you. So if you can keep him under control, that is great, but I would definitely vanquish him if you get the chance, provided there are no other heroes in the realm. He's always a good target to not leave around and start your succession pile. You also have your prophecies, which give a whopping +3 strength. This is a whole stampede, or maybe another whole hyena, maybe 2, even, depending on how big your hyena stack is. And the worst part about prophecy is that it gets discarded when you defeat the hero, so it does not count for your succession pile. For your succession pile, you're going to need Mufasa and either 3 of the 3 strength heroes, or Simba and any combination of 2 heroes. So ideally, you can get Simba out early. Don't have to deal with his ability. Cannot be Hakuna Matata because he is too strong. And you will only need 2 more heroes. This is important because you want to keep that fate pile as big as possible so you do not run into those Hakuna Matatas. Once a hero is on the board and your succession pile has started, that hero will always be around, either in the succession pile or on the board. They will never go back into the discard pile, which is extremely annoying for Rafiki. So definitely the Simba strategy is a bit better, but if you can't do that and your opponent is just giving you heroes, hey, it can be worth it to just defeat them and get to your 15 strength that way. One fun way you can secure the win is to double vanquish a 3 strength hero and a 2 strength hero if you have Simba, or 2 3 strength heroes to end at 18 strength, so even a Hakuna Matata will not stop you. Moving on to his locations, Pride Rock has 2 power at the top, 2 play a card actions, and a move ally or item action. This is a pretty good location, slightly outclassed by Elephant Graveyard, but still pretty handy, especially with that move ally or item to put a hyena over at the gorge for that vanquish action if you don't have it available at the moment. You have the Savannah with your top play, top fate, bottom discarding gain 1 power. Very nice uncovered, just allows you to get through that deck, gain a little power, and fate to boot. And then we have the Elephant Graveyard, which gives you more power than Pride Rock, the same 2 play card actions, and discards to get you to those important allies, and maybe a Whisper. Lastly, you have the Gorge, which is where you'll be doing most of your Vanquish actions. It is very important to try to keep the Gorge as clear as possible. This is because your play a card is on the top. So if you want to play a card and Vanquish at the same turn, it has to be clear. You also have a move ally or item. Good for your positioning, but that's about it. You have your Vanquish, which Scar needs a lot of, at least 4, so a very important action to have, and a Fate. So you can progress a lot, maybe 2 Vanquish actions with your Vanquish and playing a Stampede, and a Fate. So pretty good location if uncovered. If covered, it can be quite painful having to go here. And that will be it for our Scar Guide. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I will see you again soon. Goodbye, everyone.